I don't know. That's my really low energy Mortal Kombat theme. Fucking Mortal Kombat out.
Yeah. It needs to come out now. It needs to be out now. I need.
Everything I saw is mouth water.
Yeah. I went back and watched the gameplay footage, and I have so many questions about some of the things that are happening. Not in a bad way. Just I'm curious about the game mechanics of it.
I love what the story mode is. I kind of want to know what the timeline shenanigans are. And I want to know who the fuck is in the game.
Well, even beyond that, it looks like every character has multiple X-ray attacks, and potentially not even X-ray attacks, and not like the fatal attack things that they showed off, but like the scene where you see Baraka biting like part of somebody's arm off. Like that wasn't an X-ray attack. That was just like him ripping some flesh.
An arm, yeah. By the way, everybody, welcome to an After Dark episode of Phantom Zone. This is going to be a very, very casual episode because we didn't approach a topic and Hunter fell asleep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hellboy is asleep. Yeah.
It could be long or it could be short. We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Yeah. It really depends on how much we want to do this, how committed we are to the show.
Bail. No.
You saying that with so much enthusiasm makes me wonder.
Not really. Not to turn this into an episode of Lost Hero Gaming, but that gameplay trailer looks awesome. I don't want too many of those new characters come back because not all of them are that good.
I don't want a large swath of the combat kids back.
Yeah, and like I said in the chat earlier, we don't need Master Blaster back. I'm good. I don't need it.
They were spitballing ideas and just said, "Yeah, let's see what happens."
Give him a backpack, but make it a little girl.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand why Rain never came back. Like Rain was great in 9. Why not bring him back for 10?
I don't know. Just Sindel, Rain, and Baraka all had to sit that out, and so did Smoke, Nightwolf, Cabal, Striker, Jade.
Yeah. Or as my youngest boy called it when we were playing Mortal Kombat 9 the one time, it's like, who's that hippie? And I was like, what are you talking? Oh, you mean Nightwolf? You mean the Native American guy? The one with the head? Yes, he did, because he couldn't figure out that he was Native American.
Oh my.
Yeah, I'm raising him to be intolerant.
I mean, there's a certain innocence to that. That's admirable, I guess. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I think he was. I don't even know how old he was when he was playing that. I'm probably a terrible stepfather for letting him do so.
At least he didn't sit there and go, "Who's that red man?"
Who's the goddamn engine?
Then
I've only seen people like that when there's trash being thrown.
No. He didn't ask who the Italian guy was.
Oh shit! I think I found out about that Italian thing recently about the litter on the highway ad.
Oh God, really? You only recently found out about that? Like, that's something that's been around for years. That like the Native American community was kind of like, nah.
I don't think I was ever old enough to have seen that commercial on TV. So I've always been. I knew it from fucking references in other shows.
Well, I mean, that was
The Simpsons. That's where I got it from, because they do a whole bit in there.
The one thing I can remember is a reference in Mission Science Theater. Actually,
I wasn't old enough to see it when it was airing, but I mean, I think I was 2, 3, 4 in the early 80s, and it definitely was something I was able to vaguely remember seeing the commercials. But oh God,
I mean, I imagine PSAs were a lot different in that the same PSA would run like forever back
pretty much
back then. Whereas now they have like a 3-year lifespan. I would say. I don't know.
If even, because then you've got all the stuff online that people just have that only appears online. I mean, I can remember watching Saturday morning cartoons, and you'd see the same like say no to drugs type of stuff. And like when there was a new one, it was actually exciting because it's like, wait, that has Leonardo in it. Like,
yeah. This one has an egg, and she's gonna cook it.
Exactly. exactly.
Oh,
She's going to destroy the
God.
kitchen. Yeah. Yeah.
That
exactly.
commercial I've seen.
Oof.
Lost my train of thought there for a second. Actually, on this topic, I saw that Instagram page I follow called VHS Hell, and that's where I found that fucking Indian zombies.
Oh God, that movie.
What was happening again?
Oh fuck, I can't remember. It was something.
Damn it!
Yeah. Oh, let me see if I can find that. Yeah, that was. Oh, did Tallboy join us?
Well, I just saw him pop in the chat.
Okay, good.
Oh, never mind. I'm looking at the wrong chat. My bad. His fucking picture. Damn it! Let me go find this on my Instagram.
Good job.
That page is a really for stuff that we should watch on Movie Dumpster because there's all these like weird fucking obscure stuff. But the problem is, I think for us to watch it, we would have to actually transfer it from VHS to DVD, or at least transfer it from VHS to DVD and then into a video file so we could share it.
It's Indian zombies get heap big revenge on white man. And the movie is called The Dark Power.
It's fantastic.
Not terribly racist at all.
Some exploitation that I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, that's something that the terrible white people in power have kind of stepped away from.
Well, I mean, what's it called? More like those like 70s films that are always like Blackula or Everyone's Naked or like what is it? Like SS Woman of the fucking Castle.
Oh, Ilsa,
yeah,
He-Wolf of the SS. Yeah.
Shit like that.
Yeah, that classic.
Yeah.
Film.
Well, there was a ton of Ilsa films back then too, or at least it seemed like it, because I can remember the horror section in my video store always had like 3 or 4 different ones.
Was that a Corman picture? Was that a Corman special?
I don't think so. I think that was actually something that was like kind of like Skinamax level stuff.
Okay. Or probably Italian. Maybe Italian. Most likely Italian.
Oh, yeah. Actually, a lot of the movies I saw from the Video Nasties list were all...
Oh, yeah. No, that's the thing. The Video Nasties were such a weird list of things because there was stuff on there that's like, really? Why are you...
So well, British. And we don't like things.
It's so broad in what it deems to be, scene. Especially like when you pair it against stuff today. I mean, Anthropophagus, I think is what it's called, or it's called The Beast. It's got another name in Italian, or it's like The Cannibal. That movie's still disgusting.
I know the name, but I've never seen it.
It's about like some people who end up on this Italian island, like off the coast, and what the fuck? And there's a guy living there who like got marooned there and ate his family or something. So he wants to eat them too. And then the end of the movie is the funniest fucking way I've ever seen a villain be horror movie. He gets stabbed in the stomach with like a stake or something. And like as he's going down, he just runs inside of his own stomach and pulls out his guts and starts eating him, then drops dead.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, commitment to the bit is what I would call that.
I mean, it sounds like the one dude from Ricky O who tries to choke Ricky with his guts.
Oh my god! I think I'm gonna watch that sometime soon. I may laugh till I die again because
that movie is so ridiculous. Like that was one of those things that I found on VHS at I think it was an Exhumed Films Fest that was taking place in New Jersey. And I got a bootleg of that movie along with a bunch of other stuff because they had a ton of awesome things that I was never going to find anywhere else. And yeah, wore that thing out. Just it was so bizarre. It was so good. I mean, I do thank Craig Kilborn for having that on the Daily Show. That was how that movie got relaunched. But yeah.
I heard that was where it got picked up. Where it found some newfound notoriety anyway.
Well, and
I didn't see that clip first. Someone showed me the movie first.
Oh God!
So I went into that moment completely, and then when he fucking like, it's the hard cut to like what's clearly like a paper mache dummy, and there's nothing in the middle of it. It's just whatever was there is gone. It's just 2 hands and then just head crush.
Yep.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because I remember the guy who pulls his guts out. There's that scene, and at the very end of it, doesn't the warden become some sort of crazy monster or
Like,
something along those lines?
he says like, you're not the other one who has mastered the art of the fuck ever, because the martial arts in that movie is so vaguely described. Like, he gets stronger by having his old grandpa beat him with tombstones. Like, I saw that. I was like, are those like people's tombstones? Why does he have so many of them?
Well, looking back on what Riccio looks like through most of the movie too, I kind of wonder if Boone and Tobias were fans of that movie because Liu Kang kind of looks like Riccio a little bit in the first Mortal Kombat game.
Like,
what's that?
Riccio made. I want to say it might have been after the first Mortal Kombat.
Really?
Maybe.
I think we did look this up at one point. But
and if
no, 89 to 90. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah. And if you're curious about back to an earlier subject, the other two Ilsa films were Harem Keeper of the Sheiks and Ilsa the Wicked Ward. And then looking up
Ilsa into a fucking search engine, and was it Ilsa Faust?
Oh yeah.
Because I just looked up Ilsa She-Wolf, and it also brought up SS Experiment Love Camp 7, Gestapo's Last Orgy, and then Bloodsucking Freaks and Last House on the Left. Oh, Nazi Love Camp 27.
Seen Bloodsucking Freaks. That movie fucking sucks.
Listen, not every movie can have a great scene where they're throwing darts at someone's ass. All right,
not every movie can divide audiences like other films have.
Yeah, but like that movie is nothing but a dartboard in the ass. Like everything else is so stupid and useless. Movie.
Well, that movie. I think it got distributed by Troma later because I can remember
that was why I bought it because when Suncoast was still a thing, I went in there and saw the Troma logo on it. I was like, this looks like trash. I have to have it.
Yeah, I can remember always seeing the trailer for it in the beginning of Troma movies that I owned on DVD because it'd be like, oh yeah, here's this, this, and this, and it'd be like, oh, what's this? What is Wizard of Gore? What is this?
I've seen Wizard of Gore. I've seen the sequel to Wizard of Gore, I think. No, wait, what was it? Wizard of Gore. It was a chef themed gore movie. I can't remember what it was called.
God, no idea.
Yeah. It was one of those movies where it's like right there with Wizard of Gore, just discussing for no reason. Stuff like Pieces.
Jesus Christ. Memory lane here.
Yeah. I burned through a whole bunch of Troma movies to go to the local video. That's how I discovered Toxic Avenger. That's how I found I don't think anyone could release Kabuki Man now.
No, that movie is entirely too racist to be released now.
I don't remember anything about it, and I'm pretty sure it's probably still highly inappropriate.
I haven't seen it since I was maybe 23, 24.
The movie get made nowadays, and I'm just going to have a mini conversation about this because I can't wait for the movie dumpster episode. I don't think Lawnmower Man would make it past the pre-production phase with their idea of what Simple Job should be.
Not that version, certainly. Yeah. Also, I don't think anybody would be as bold-faced as to just make a completely different movie and then just put a title on it. I mean, I would hope not.
I love the story about the production of that movie. It happened, and then Eric came in.
Yeah,
we're filming it, and they just slapped the title into some script they had called Cyber God. And then Stephen King was like, "Hey, this isn't Lawnmower Man. Take my name off of it." And they went, "Okay." And then Stephen King seemingly walked away, and they said, "Don't take his name off of it."
We're gonna use his cachet. And
he sued. I think he sued and won, and they still put his name on it.
And I find that funny because this was after Maximum Overdrive, right? So
yeah, definitely was. Yeah.
So he produced that film, and he's still like, take my name off of this.
Actually, didn't Stephen King write and direct that movie?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. And I know he was also on a mountain of coke when he did that movie. So, yeah.
Yes, he was.
That's why a pop can kills a young child, and it's fantastic.
Oh, it's so good.
You know, I have seen in its entirety the Lawnmower Man sequel.
I rented it from my local VHS store years ago. Yeah, I did too.
I barely remember it. Yeah. That's pretty much as far as you should go. No one comes back. Not even Jeff Fahey or Pierce Brosnan.
Nope.
They got Matt Frewer, who played Moloch in Watchmen, to be Job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, he was also the guy who played Max Headroom.
He's done so many things.
He's not? Yeah, I thought he was. I thought it was. Maybe
Yeah, he's Max Headroom. Yeah,
I could have sworn he was Max Headroom.
I feel like that's why he got the role. That's probably why. He's one of those guys, though. He's one of those I've been in everything dudes.
Yeah, he even had like a short-lived sitcom on I can't remember if it was CBS or ABC or whatever, where he played a doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, I know him mostly from kids. That's my
very soft, welcoming voice too. I could see him as a doctor.
Yeah.
One of the Dead. He's a zombie they have to shoot. Guy who turns. Yeah, I haven't revisited that movie in a long time, and I probably should. I just saw. I think they're prepping for a new Dawn, the '70s version, for a new Blu-ray. Yeah,
that'd be great.
The last one was shit. Apparently, from what I understand.
That's what I heard as well. And also, I've always heard rumors. I don't know if it's true or not, that the Italian cut of the movie actually has a little bit more to it than what America got to see.
I believe that.
Like I can't confirm or deny that, but I'm hoping that's the case, because Dawn of the Dead was a movie like pretty much every year from age like 12 until 16 I would rent on my birthday. Like I love that movie so much.
I love that one, but I got very attached to Day of the Dead in my teens and have revisited that like every few years, and that movie gets better and better on repeat viewings, because I didn't realize that movie has got kind of a lot going on for it in terms of addressing the themes of the past two movies and kind of wrapping them up.
I see. For me, Day has always just been, hey, let's all yell on an island for 2 hours. Like that's pretty much what that movie is to me.
Because it has Colonel Rhodes, and he is just that. I can't remember that actor's name, but he is a fucking lightning rod of nastiness and charisma the entire movie.
Oh, he definitely is, but I think just the main thrust of that movie is like, we don't know what's happening, let's just yell, and then zombie.
There's one scene in particular I like where it's all the decent people are having a little powwow, and I can't remember her name, but the main character goes to leave and copter pilot's like, what's the point of all this research? Like, you're just gonna fill this building with more boxes and folders and already boxes and folders here. You're just gonna line with more boxes and folders. All this is useless. Humanity died. Let's just kind of try to be happy.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and the ending was nice to actually have a somewhat optimistic ending. But yeah, something about Day just never sat with me right. Like, the gore was great. I liked what's his face? Was it Bud? It wasn't Bud. No, that's Bud the Chud is who I'm thinking of. What was that?
B-U-B.
Okay, Bub. That's it. I couldn't remember. But yeah.
Bub's the highlight of that movie for, I think, everybody. Yeah. And then he had a weird cameo in Land of the Dead, and I hated it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he shows up in Land of the Dead for a quick second. I think like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost do as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're paying attention, you can see him.
I saw that movie once and never felt a reason to go.
No, the only thing I'd like to go back is to see that one scene where oh, god damn it, I'm having a bad memory night. I'm getting old. Oh, Dennis Quaid, or not Dennis Quaid. Not Dennis Quaid. Jesus, Dennis Quaid would be a real weird choice for Land of the Dead.
Jesus.
Randy Quaid,
Randy Quaid, he'd just be drunk. No, the main bad
Star
guy.
Killers are coming for you.
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper, that's it.
Yes.
When Dennis Hopper knows everything's going on and he's trying to get out, and I forget what the reason is, but at one point some guy is with him and Dennis Hopper's like, oh wait, comes up and shoots as he's trying to help him. It was something along those lines, or he and shoots the guy so he can get away and have more, I guess, supplies for himself.
I'm sorry, I lost you there for a second, but I got the gist of it. I know what scene you're talking about.
Yeah.
I only remember I'm like, all right, zombies getting smart. Okay? I don't feel anything.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
That series has. I wish time was kinder to it, and I wish the exploited the idea that technically a lot of them can be remade by anyone. At this point, I wish all those people would fucking stop it, because there's like 4 Day of the Deads, and all of them are awful.
Yeah,
excluding
none
the
of them
original,
seem to follow the basic ideas of that.
Oh, they just make shit up. They're like it's gonna start like Day of the Dead, but then it's gonna go off this weird plot line where zombies puke and everything's disgusting, and it's a hospital, not a military complex. Blah blah blah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, on that subject, I didn't get to talk about it in the show yet, but now is probably as good as time as any. I watched Hellraiser Judgment.
Oh my.
Yeah. I couldn't believe how nothing of a movie that was. Granted, it was better than Revelations, but that bar is so low that I wasn't even concerned with it. But this, Eric, your point about it being too complicated and why hell needs bureaucracy is so on point, because
yeah, it's hell.
The character called the new character called the
They
Auditor.
have one job.
Yeah, no. They don't even need like a loose structure like in the Mordor games. They just there's one dude and then there's a bunch of people torturing each other.
There's one dude who delegates everything and he can kill everyone with a snap of his fingers. That's the idea of hell. Like he can make your punishment worse.
Now there's essentially like a fucking there's a character called the Auditor who's like a middle manager character who's covered in cuts and wears sunglasses and a suit. I don't know why. There's no mention of Leviathan. Hell is never shown. And Pinhead now conducts his in condemning through kidnapping people and then having them sit in a saw-looking like room, and then they puke into a thing, which then is siphoned into a room where a bunch of girls dressed as angels drink it out of a trough. And then a fat man walks in, and then a tiny man crawls out from beneath his crotch and then starts cutting people. It's fucking stupid. So complicated.
Thanks, Lionsgate and Harvey Weinstein's brother.
God.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All the mysticism was sucked out of it in favor of this, like, hey, I saw Silent Hill once, and I looked at a picture of a Saw film.
I don't understand why they wouldn't look at, like, all right, so the last really successful Hellraiser movie was 2, arguably 3. Let's keep that in mind.
Still say that those movies are watchable up till part 4. Yes, that's the one where they go to space, but at least you can look at that and go, that's an ending to Pinhead. Like that is an ending that you could easily apply to this.
Oh yeah, I know. I will argue to the death that part 4 is actually a decent movie. Maybe not for everything that happens in it, but for the grand plan they have for it. Like I think it works.
So ridiculous. Like he's gonna lock Pinhead in a giant lament configuration that's essentially a space station. That's gonna work it's gonna blast him with light until he's just blown up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And then they had to bring in Drunkle Pinhead.
That's like 3 movies later, though. The ones in between are just. I think they took other horror films and just kind of worked Pinhead into them and called it a day.
Never even bothered seeing them.
Oh, they are bad. One of them stars the dude from, what is it? The Havoc commercials. I can't remember what that guy's name is. I think he was in Oz as well.
Oh, that guy, the one who's in the insurance commercials. Oh God, really?
Yeah,
because he played Liz Lemon's shitty boyfriend in 30 Rock too.
I did not know that. And then in one of the later movies, Kirsty comes back, and I was like, "Oh, this is bad."
No,
I've been using her.
I can't even imagine how much they had to offer her to come back, and especially being that it's a later movie, they didn't have a whole lot to offer her. Get that?
I think that was too relevant at that point either. So I think it was like the 90s. I think her star had faded. I don't think I've seen anyone outside of those movies pop up in much of anything else.
Yeah, that is kind of surprising because you would think that at least somebody might have transitioned into some sort of acting gig from there, but it seems no one had any luck after Hellraiser.
And I also think Doug Bradley was just basically stapled into that costume for 15 years, and he just wasn't allowed to leave it.
Oh yeah, that too. I'm sure.
Home
I'm
in a
sure they
bathrobe
just
and his full fucking pinhead makeup and just waiting for a phone call. Like,
oh no, they just left the studio. Like they just shut down the lights. Like, see you, Brad. Like what? What? No, what? I'm sorry.
I'm a Shakespearean trained actor. This is preposterous.
I'm sorry.
And that's something else that bothered me too, is that they have in the last two films they haven't found someone who can match even Bradley on his worst day. People are so fucking low energy and don't have any of like the grandiose presence that Doug Bradley had as Pinhead, and it just hurts the movie.
And that's what the strength of a lot of those movies were the over the topness, for lack of a better term. Like there's a certain amount of of melodrama you need for those movies to work properly. Like you can't just have it be like the more recent batch of splatter films like Saw and whatnot. It doesn't have the same feel to it. Like that's human.
And the overall aesthetics of the Cenobite completely changed. Like no one is pale skinned with like metal sticking out of them anymore. Like they don't represent. You can't look at them and go, that design is clearly speaking to this person in a certain way. Now it's just like put a gas mask on someone and then give them sickles.
Yeah, let's go to the army supply store and and pick a bunch of random shit. And
a few movies can get away with that, and I think one of them was Frankenstein's Army. So,
right. I mean, yeah, especially if you go to a Russian supply store, you can get a lot of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it comes up whenever Hellraiser comes up, but The Howling has a similar problem where like the later movies have just gotten worse and worse, but even like the most recent ones, they fall into the CG trap of like a really cheap CG werewolf. And like, I watched The Howling 3 fairly recently, and it's not great, but there's some really good practical effects work in that movie. So that's something.
I would argue that there are some great practical effects work in the first one, and then there's also really bad scenes that look like they were cut out of the animated film Heavy Metal of werewolves fucking. That's,
that is also true.
Like that scene where what's his face, who was in Night of the Creeps, he oh no, he doesn't turn into a werewolf. It's the crazy werewolf woman, and oh no, he does get turned into a werewolf, doesn't he? Blonde dude.
The husband. The husband. Spoilers. The husband turns into a werewolf. He gets seduced
at one point. But I remember they show them like getting it on at the fire and in the middle of the night, and when it pulls away to show them turning into werewolves and howling at the moon as they both climax at the same time, I'm guessing. It looks like something out of Heavy Metal. Like it's like, because I watched that movie like maybe 4 years ago for the first time in forever, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, okay.
The later Howling sequels, after American Werewolf in Paris.
What?
They did I think only the most recent one, because they tried to do like a reboot, and I didn't even bother because I was like, I was actually kind of excited because I was like, why? Maybe they're gonna try again. Maybe they're gonna really give it a chance and hire a good director. No.
Oh no.
Why would they do that?
No.
On that front, there is you have probably seen it. There is a short film on YouTube called and it was basically a proof of concept short film somebody made and pitched it to Dimension in an effort to basically reboot the franchise. They went fucking in on this, and they completely redesigned the aesthetic of the movies while staying true to what it's supposed to be. Like it's like a minute and a half, and it's just you start at the bottom of this giant pile of writhing bodies, and then you rise up, and then Pinhead standing on it looks almost kind of like Aztec inspired, but still maintaining that weird Hellraiser aesthetic. And he's standing in front of I think what I was described as the new version of Leviathan. And he's got a new design. He's wearing an apron, and he's kind of shirtless, and he's covered in cuts and everything like that. He's got all the pins in his head. They're more crude. They're like little railroad spikes.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
And then he says, "Welcome to hell," and it pans out, and blah blah blah. It's over, and Dimension was like,
Oh, kind of like that Spawn short film that was out there years ago. That is probably going to look better than the new Spawn film. The one that you don't. Go ahead.
I was gonna say. I mean, again, Harvey Weinstein's brother. He can't be spending money on something. Why would he ever do that? He would rather not spend money on anything and just release a very bad film.
They're just like, this looks expensive, and the director of that short is like, I funded this myself. You guys can do this.
I'm sure Harvey Weinstein's brother, whatever the hell his name is. I feel bad because I used to know both of their names, but I don't really feel
names. So.
I really feel shouldn't feel too bad being that Harvey Weinstein is a terrible shithead, to put it lightly. But I feel like his brother is just having all the money he has siphoned into Harvey's legal defense. Even though fun fact about that, I saw that Harvey's lawyer has quit. He has left his defense. That is not a good sign, sir.
Karma, you fat motherfucker.
Ugh. I wish you could just put him in a locked room with Uma Thurman for an hour. Like just the damage she would do to him.
With the samurai.
I was going to add too that it seems like those horror franchises that were big in the 80s and 90s, like every attempt to revitalize them either stumbles or just meets with like middling results.
They just don't try, and it's a cash-in, that's more disrespectful to me, honestly. Like, not even making an attempt at doing anything interesting.
Well, I think they're trying to make or hope that it does well because of the name. Like, that's it. Like, there's no real effort put into it because they're just like, oh yeah, people like this in the 80s. Let's see if this does well.
That Nightmare remake was a blur to me. Like, I can't remember anything about it.
I never saw it.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Arlen.
I respect that more than some of these cash-in movies, though. Like, they tried on that film. I don't think it worked, but they did try.
I think at bare minimum, casting Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy Krueger is definitely trying.
Yes. Yeah, and that was what gave me hope. I didn't see the movie, and then I heard all the things about it. I'm like, oh no. But like that was
the design of Freddy just wasn't clicking. He's instead of having this really kind of gross looking face that pizza and unpleasant to the touch, he's the same color but all of his features are flattened and his eyeballs over here, and it's so minimalistic it doesn't look that good.
He's very CG, like to an unsettling point, and yeah, it kind of just takes you out of the movie. His performance is really good, though, so it's like take the good with the bad, I guess. But I mean, I've talked about this before. The micronaps are the real thing that like make that movie different, because you have characters who are sort of, going back and forth between dreaming, and there's a real good use of tension, and almost like there's scenes that feel like something out of Hitchcock in that movie that are very well done and well directed.
Probably my favorite thing about it, because it does open up opportunities for a character who you should go, that person's awake, but then for a few seconds at a time, you could slip into Freddy's world and something bad could happen. And they tried to play with Freddy's presumed innocence over being burned alive after the trial, and I don't think they ever make a hard stance on it one way or the other.
Yeah, that's what I thought I had heard, was that like they kind of directly say, oh, he was a child molester, but then they're like, but was he really? Was he set up by the parents?
Yeah, but then that intrigue is just sucked out the window, because I think 5 minutes later, or like 10 minutes later, they stumble upon his like fucking X dungeon that he walled off somewhere. It's like, oh, he's just evil. I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was something I didn't pick up on until I was older watching the Nightmare films. Like, there's an ambiguity to if Freddy is actually the one who did all that shit to those kids, or if he's just now getting revenge because of what the parents did with mob mentality.
Yeah, I mean,
that's kind of an interesting wrinkle to it, and I wish they committed to something different. But I don't think he was ever supposed to be a child molester in the original films. I think weird sexual joy out of torturing kids, which is no better. But
don't they canonize it in the one where they're like, he's the child of 100 criminals or whatever?
Oh my god! You
Bastard
mean the
son of 1,000 maniacs.
one
Yes.
directed by Rennie
Yeah.
Harlan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the fifth one, I thought.
Yeah. I think that has the kid from the first Jurassic Park who mouths off to Neil. I think that's him. I can't remember, but that's the one Rennie Harlan made. And...
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think that is that terrible little child.
What the fuck did Rennie Harlan? Where the fuck?
I know one of the later Nightmare directors. He also directed The Mask. And that happened because early on they were doing more of a nightmare take, like it was going to be more of a horror thing, like the book.
Well, they were going to follow the graphic novel a little more.
Yes,
I remember.
Yeah,
that might have been the guy who directed Nightmare 4, if I remember correctly.
I don't even think the Nightmare movies get that bad as you watch them. They're still like they become campy.
I think part 5 and part 6 are definitely questionable at best in their quality, but outside of that, everything else is great.
Okay, so the director of Dream Warriors did The Mask. The Predator 2 guy did one of the other later Nightmare movies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, because I really like part 4, actually. Dream Warriors is one of my favorites. Like oh no, that's part 3. I'm thinking of part 4.
Dream Warriors. 4 is Dream
Master?
Child?
No, part 5 is the Dream Child.
Oh yeah, that's right. It is Dream Master for 4. Because it's like a girl who's like she's like even with Freddy, right?
Yeah, and that's the one like watching the. Did you guys ever watch the documentary, like the 4-hour documentary about the Nightmare History series?
Yes, for both sides of that equation.
Because times. Well, they talk about how they didn't have the budget for a lot of the Freddy killing people scenes, especially like the one where what's her face's brother is fighting him, and it's just him fighting an invisible Freddy.
Oh my!
They had big plans for that, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't have the budget, so we're just going to do this vaguely Asian-themed room, and you're going to fight an invisible guy."
Such an
and by the way, Dream Child is the same director as Predator 2, in case anybody.
Okay. Yeah, I like part 2. I feel like whoever directed that went on to do other things other than horror because
yeah.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they did. I wouldn't be surprised if they went to make a film. That
was one of my favorite parts of the documentary, like seeing like actors and a couple of the writers be like, "Oh, yeah, we knew what this movie was," and then like a producer or two were like, "What? No, we didn't know that was."
Yeah, that's my favorite thing about it is there's a few people who are like, what? I have no idea what you're talking about. There's no gay
Shit. So, Jack Shoulder, which great name by the way, director of Nightmare 2, born in Philadelphia. So that's a thing.
Okay.
And he directed Alone in the Dark. Wait, no, that's what? Okay, 1982.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say because definitely made that video game movie.
Yeah. God damn it! I closed the window. God damn it!
And you know what? What's funny? This happened recently too to some other big '80s, '90s, well, more '90s like sci-fi horror franchise and fucking Predator, because I've heard the Predator is pretty bad.
Yeah, I've heard nothing good about it. Yeah.
I watched some YouTube because that's pretty much how I kind of make sure it's going to be a safe film to watch and not be a total waste of time. And I beheld some of the worst CGI I've ever come across.
I mean, that's the worst thing about the movie. It's a movie, and I've said this about a lot of movies from last year, it's a movie you do need to see so you can form your own opinion.
I'm going to see it eventually, but it was like Venom where I was like, I'll just wait until I'm at a point where the movie's in my face and I have no choice.
Right. That's fair. That's totally fair.
I heard about the weird alternate endings, like one where just fucking show up for some reason, not played by Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Quick back to Nightmare on Elm Street 2's director. He directed The Hidden, which is actually a pretty good movie. Like, I haven't seen it in forever, but I mean, it's got Kyle MacLachlan as an alien trying to hunt down an evil alien. Like,
I'm into that. I'm into
yeah,
that a lot,
What's that
actually.
called?
it's
Oh,
called
he's
The
playing
Hidden.
an FBI agent, Special Agent Lloyd Gallagher. Okay, wow. There's some.
Oh, yeah, maybe he's working with an alien. I can't remember.
Okay, because there was a movie I saw on TV when I was little, and I thought this might have been it, but it's not. There was a movie I saw. It was on TV. I was watching with my dad, and it was like about these two aliens disguised as humans who could just like sustain all kinds of wounds and just like regenerate.
That might be it. Yeah, because it takes place in LA. Yeah, it's he's the FBI agent who ends up working with the one alien. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth checking out. Like, it's very 80s, like 1987 at peak capacity.
Honestly, the only things I've seen Kyle MacLachlan in were Twin Peaks, Dune, and Blue Velvet. That's it.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
David
I've
Lynch.
seen a lot of
Portlandia for me. That's a big one. Yeah, as the mayor.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
was.
Oh,
Have
he,
And
you
I
seen
saw-
any Portlandia at all? Just
My
curious.
brother has
Have
shown
you
me some.
yeah,
bits
I
of-
have.
My brother showed me all the Jeff Goldblum stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's like where he runs. He runs a store for preserved knots, where it's just like things that become knotted. And I think he goes into a back room and pulls out his prized possession, which is like iPod headphones that were tangled in someone's pocket. It's in like a glass case. It's air sealed, and he just lets the people touch it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, he's Kyle MacLachlan's apparently in that movie The House with Clocks in Its Walls, or The House with the Clock in Its Walls.
He is. He's not as campy as I wanted him to be in that movie. Like, I expected just full on unleashed Kyle MacLachlan, but he's in that, and he's a good villain, I would say. Yeah.
Well, that was something I hadn't realized until recently, is that that's based on a John Belaris book, which I grew up reading John Belaris books. Like, they were perfect, like preteen, like horror stories, and they're actually pretty good from what I remember. I mean, mind you, this is like 11-year-old, 12-year-old me remembering it, but
I remember hearing before it came out that Eli Roth is basing it off of like a I don't want to use the phrase children's book, but yeah, like a young adult book.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Eric Kripke, the person who wrote the script, he wrote the first 5 seasons of Supernatural. He was the showrunner before that show went off the rails. And watching A House with Clock in Its Walls, I was like, oh, he stole a lot of his stuff from this lore, from this world, because a lot of it comes back. And if anybody knows Supernatural lore even a little bit, the Yellow-Eyed Demon shows up, and it's interesting. And he's kind of said in interviews that they are the same universe, kind of, possibly. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can say anything when you're not doing a show anymore, I guess. So
yeah, when your show has gone on for 10 years after it was supposed to end, you can say whatever you want.
The clip in Scrubs where Turk runs into the old host of Love Connection at the hospital. He's like, Turk goes, he goes, "What have you been doing since Love Connection went off the air?" He's like, "Love Connection never went off the air. I still run episodes in my basement with my neighbors."
No, but speaking of A House with Clock in Its Walls, I almost picked that up tonight, but I ended up buying a Bad Night at the El Royale on digital because it was $10 and I couldn't really say no to that. And Hunter, Jesus Christ, Connor, you're not tall boy, you're small boy.
Oh, I'm tall, with lots of energy.
You should really check that movie out. It's pretty great. It's a slow burn, but it's pretty good.
I was in when I saw Hemsworth. I was like, all right.
That's unfortunately that's something I wish they hadn't revealed in the marketing.
I agree.
One of those. Okay.
I don't want to say a whole lot, but yeah, it's something that I wish they really would have saved, like, for you to be surprised by, because it would have been a great role for him to come out after the movie was out and be like, hey, guess what? And like shock people. But yeah, it like I was trying to say to Arlen earlier, like it feels like it's kind of noir-esque in a way, or at least like hard-boiled detective story, like just the way it starts to unfold. And it's definitely a very slow burn. Like it's probably not until about an hour and a half in that things really pick up, but it's also like a 2 hour and 20-minute movie. So,
Yeah.
but it's beautiful design and just everything dovetails pretty well at the end.
Yeah, if you like Cabin in the Woods,
think
you'll like this. So,
Oh, yeah, okay. Wait, is the same director?
Yeah, Drew Goddard. He wrote and directed it.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Yeah. That's why Hemsworth and the whole cast being insane. So,
Yeah. John Hamm is also in it, and he's pretty great. Yeah, and the soundtrack.
It's in Cabin in the Woods, and then every time I go back and watch it, I'm like, look at his baby face!
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's because that movie was in development hell, so like it's really young. Like I think it's pre-Star Trek actually.
Well, the only reason that movie came out is because Thor did so well.
Yeah. Yep. Basically. Yeah. And I think it was the same year as Avengers. That it officially came out. I'm not sure.
What? That Cabin in the Woods came out?
Yeah.
I think it was.
I feel like that's right.
Yeah, if it wasn't the same year, it was definitely very close to. Like, yeah. It kind of came out of nowhere. And it seems odd because I mean, having Joss Whedon's name connect. Well, I think that also had a lot to do with it. Was Joss Whedon directing Avengers and it doing so well? They're like, yeah, let's make sure this gets out.
Yeah. So both names.
Let's this little movie and say you're a big guy, pinches the movie's cheek, like as condescendingly.
Yeah, you're a big boy now.
Big boy. Yeah, I mean, at least it got that treatment, like Trick or Treat, which was made, and then who distributed that? Because what's Trick or Treat? We don't know what that film is. We forgot about it.
Oh God,
we threw that in a vault.
Comes out 5 years later, just like on-demand services with no fanfare whatsoever, and people were left to discover on their own, which is good. But that movie deserves.
Oh, it deserves so much more attention than it gets. Like I think it officially got a Blu-ray release until like maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago, and it wasn't the studio that released it on Blu-ray. It was like one of the independent studios that gets the rights to stuff and releases.
Shout Factory, it looks like. Which I mean, they're very good at it, but still, like, come on.
Yeah, it was the first like horror anthology I've seen in forever that was so well done and everything was connected.
It was good throughout, which is something that like sometimes anthologies really struggle with because there's always that one sketch where it's like,
I'd say all anthologies struggle with this. This is why I tend to not judge them too harshly. Because I always find one where I'm like, no, fuck you, kick the can. That's right, I said it. I did it. Fuck you, kick the can. Calling you out, Spielberg.
Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I thought there was supposed to be a different short in there other than Kick the Can, and something happened that they decided, oh nope, we can't do that one. All right, let's just throw that in here.
I mean, was it the helicopter crash?
No. It was I can't remember which story it was, but I'd been listening to a podcast and they were talking about it recently, or I'd read an article, and there was basically, it brought up the fact that like whatever, all the stuff that happened with Vic Morrow dying and all that, like I think there was something else that Landis was supposed to direct, and they ended up being like, let's pull Spielberg in and do this real quick.
How about we not show your face for several years?
Right. How about we all go to Europe and make Temple of Doom and never go back to America, possibly, maybe. Maybe.
I think on the Movie Dumpster episode we had Matt Curion on for American Murder in Paris. I think he heard about how if that helicopter thing had never happened, then John Landis would have been too busy to procreate, and we would have never had Max Landis.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, well, he might have had Max Landis, but he wouldn't have been so fucked up and sending him off to boarding school after boarding school after boarding school and putting him on lithium and all that whatnot. So maybe Max Landis might have ended up a normal person.
Right. Maybe.
Yeah, like like more like Max Brooks, a completely
normal person. I heard also John covered up for a lot of stuff that Max did, which is super shitty.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I just remembered it was actually on the Laser Time episode about Twilight Zone episodes that they talked about the Twilight Zone movie and the kick the can inclusion. Just to plug another podcast while we're recording one.
But
think
another
my
point on Trick or Treat, like
favorite
anthologies are
segment
kind of
any-
a thing now.
Mhm.
So Trick or Treat was kind of ahead of its time, like 10 years
Well,
ahead
and
of its time.
Creep Show's really
it's
fucking fun.
it's still ahead of its time though, because it not only has strong individual stories, but then it has a strong through story that connects everything. Like it doesn't feel like any one thing was given short shrift. And yeah, you're right, Connor. Creepshow was ahead of its time, but it also was pulling from a lot of places that hadn't been strip mined yet, which was mostly like Eerie and Crypt of what Tales from the Crypt and stuff like that.
I think the only one I really don't like is that Tar Monster one from 2.
Yeah, because Thanks for the Ride, Lady's pretty great.
On a fucking for 20 minutes and then they all die. I'm like, that was dumb. Like,
yeah, but you got to see some sweet boobs. You got to see some
yay.
You got to see some cans.
Oh, boobies. I mean, first of all, the first movie had Adrian Barbeau. You don't need to make up for anything in that department, okay?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But the second one also had those great animated scenes.
See the movie first. I read the book first, and I found it at my school library.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Wow, your school was very tolerant.
There's a fucking lapse in judgment on one adult's part.
Jesus, yeah, because I mean, when I was growing up, like they were pulling books out of libraries, just like, oh nope, can't have this book. It has vaguely satanic things in it, like, or it has something related to magic.
Well, it's a good thing I went to school, kindergarten, first grade in Florida.
Well, yeah, it's a good thing they couldn't be bothered to burn those books because they're too busy giving balls of milk.
Yeah. And in Florida, you were just being taught by the alligators. So
exactly, yeah, old Climby.
We had in my first grade school library, we had as child friendly as they can be, picture versions of the Universal Monster movies. These like very short form versions of the books had and short little kind of blocks of text to accompany them, and it was a super condensed retelling of those movies. So that was my first exposure to that.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that would have been my favorite thing as a kid, probably.
It's funny because I was just talking to my wife earlier about is it Edward Gorey, the illustrator?
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
No, that's somebody different. I'm not sure who that is. Edward Gorey is the guy who think Tim Burton, but actually kind of like his aesthetic. Like Arlen, you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. Now that you say that, yeah, Edward Gorey, but it's spelled like Corey.
Gorey, if I remember correctly. But when I was in like third grade, there was a book in the library that was like, elementary school appropriate horror stories, I guess. Thinking back on it, probably not, but all of the illustrations were by Edward Gorey. And looking back on that, like, there's no way for him to do illustrations that aren't horrific and kind of menacing. Like, yeah, like he did the ABCs of death, not death, but something along those lines. I'm going to send a picture over in Messenger so you guys can see. But
right now.
You'll know it as soon as you see it, like what I'm talking about. Like, I'm sure you guys have seen his stuff before.
There's one I'm looking at, and it looks like just floating Chewbacca heads. That's the best way I can describe it.
I don't know about that one. Like, but yeah, there's something very sinister about his stuff.
It looks actually. If you're looking at it from a distance, some of them look like stuff from like Where the Wild Things Are. Like it's very
kind of it kind of looks Maurice Sendak-esque, yeah. And actually
in the Discord.
It also connects to something I was talking about earlier, John Belaris. He did the artwork or the illustration for all the covers of the John Belaris books. So that explains why I actually really enjoyed reading them too, because it set the tone really well.
Isn't Del Toro adapting Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
Yes, he is, and
Yes,
I
he
think
is.
the movie is supposed to come out this year.
Yeah.
The movie or is
And-
it a show? I can't remember.
I thought it was a movie, actually.
Oh, well. Yeah, and he said he's not going to pull any punches, which is the part I really liked. He's not going to
Yeah.
kidify it up. Like, I guess it will be an all ages thing, but like adults will be terrified in it as well as children, which is something that, yeah, we need more of that.
Needs to happen more often.
I
Well,
googled that
that's-
movie, and the first headline I got was "New Final Destination movie in the works of Saw writers," and I'm so angry I had to read all of that.
Yeah.
No, if I remember correctly, like Del Toro had also said, like he wants to have the creatures, ghosts, whatever, as best. That's the best way to describe it, to match the illustrations as closely as possible, to
Yeah,
give that sense of disquiet.
Yeah.
Good, because that means people learn the right lessons, because they released that book and took all that art out of it and replaced it with really lame, just inoffensive art, and people got pissed.
What? Why would?
Yeah.
Why?
And then
Why?
after, there was a big backlash and people were mad, and then finally they went back and restored the original art.
Why would
I
you
would hope
replace
so. Yeah.
that? Completely defeats the purpose of those books, because let's be
Yeah.
honest, those stories really aren't all that scary. It's the artwork that makes them horrific.
Oh, the story about the fucking big toe.
Yeah.
I think my favorite one of those things is it's not scary. It's very amusing. Is the Viper.
Oh yeah.
I wish
I
you
remember
wash
that one.
wipe your windows. I think that's where I heard. I think one of my favorite short ghost or scary stories, which is it was called "There's Room for One More."
Mm.
That was where this having it's like a car pulls up and there's someone like something else pulls up and there's always one person saying, "Oh, come on in. There's room for one more."
Yeah, I vaguely remember this
elevator, and someone in the elevator says, "There's room for one more," and then as he's walking away, the elevator fucking falls down the shaft and everything.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, the particular illustration for that story was like the people in the elevator, and they all look horrific and mutated, like all of those illustrations do.
Yes.
Yeah,
I haven't revisited that book in a long time. I want to touch on this headline real quick because about, I guess someone asked him, "Hey, do you want to do a Saw reboot?" And I wanted to climb through my computer and throttle this hypothetical reporter for even putting it into the air, the idea of a Saw reboot.
No.
Oh, okay. So, and I didn't want to look this up because why would I? But I did like click on that story when I initially read it, and I couldn't see what the actual question asked was. There was a question in the headline, but it didn't match up with what the person was quoted as saying, and it sounded like, "Sure, I would work on Saw."
I think I might have read something that was misquoted. I just don't like the idea of us having a conversation about.
Yeah, I mean,
Jigsaw just fucking.
Yeah.
Have that at the world prize by that. Nobody.
Yeah, I feel like it's a case of the people writing the stories just wrote what was going to be the most clicked. It was like, how can we get people to look at it? Well, Final Destination and Saw, people like both those things. So if we put them both in the title and we don't give you any real context for what was said, we can get people to click. Because there's not really any context for them even asking about a reboot, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it's bizarre. So we need a Final Destination reboot. It's why stop this. I feel like it's barely been a minute. It's also, how many times are you going to do this where it is literally the same movie over and over again? And you can't even say that with the Saw films, because at least they have the decency to change who the villain is every once in a while. Final Destination is like, there's a group of teenagers and they all got killed in horrible ways. Now watch them all get ceremoniously picked off, and then the end of the movie will reveal they didn't escape death after all.
Well, I feel like that movie series is fascinating because it's the thing that critics in the 80s who were like really upset about slasher films, it's the thing that they were talking about that wasn't really happening at the time. They were kind of making it out to be that way, that all the movies were just the same thing over and over again. But that is Final Destination. It is really just like, this is the plot. You know it. You're waiting for the moment when they all realize that death is following them. You're waiting for Tony Todd's cameo. And you're just waiting for all these moments, and you're waiting for the deaths to come up. And you're waiting for them to just give you more and more inventive death scenes, which I guess that has some value, but I don't know. I feel like those movies don't really deserve a lot of credit creatively, if you ask me, other than the visual effects people.
Other than going into really, I was watching the one in the 3D one that came out a few and it got to the end where I was just laughing my ass off, because at this point it was these like absurd Rube Goldberg device-esque setups to get these people into peril. I was like, man, Death is overworking himself at this point. Like, why is he doing all this? There's so many steps.
I honestly, I've only watched 1.5 of those movies.
Yeah, well, the 3D, I saw it because the 3D one, it was free because I worked at theater at the time, so I just went with my coworkers.
It's nothing against them. Like, I've heard they're fun if you just disconnect yourself from the story and just watch them for the death scenes. But I need a little bit more than just that in a movie. Like, I barely have time as is to watch a 2.5-hour movie, let alone an hour and a half of something I don't really want to watch. So,
which is why I've not really dipped my toes in the horror pool all but once a year around October, November, because a lot of what that comes out is just trash. Although Shudder has been very good for me discovering things that either I watch and have a fantastic story to tell afterwards, or I watch and go, hey, that wasn't terrible.
Yeah, that's been about 90% of my experience with Shudder, and there's that 10% that I'm like, that was actually quite good. But yeah, most of it's been like, oh, this has actually been decent. Like, it might not be the best executed, but I've been happy with the, what is it, like $6 or $5 a month I'm spending on it, something ridiculously low.
I think it's less than $5, which is the only reason I've continued to sub. Like, why not?
I think it's like $4.99.
Yeah.
It's barely $5.
Yeah, it's barely. I don't even notice it. I have other subscriptions that I do notice. Looking at you, AMC subs.
I think I kind of want to wrap because I hear the dogs yelling at me from the other room to let them out. I know Ashley and Dean aren't here, so.
All right. Yeah, that works.
Sure. Yeah, I guess we can talk about Glass.
I have nothing to plug right now because Movie Dumpster is still in its break, so you should go check out all of season 1. Yeah.
Woo. Actually go listen to that. It's a great show.
Yeah.
I've actually been considering re-listening.
Our Home Alone 4 episode is a very spiteful, fun episode.
I haven't gotten to that yet. I'm catching up on the backlog at this point.
Man, we hate that movie.
Arlen, do you have anything you want to plug?
Lost Horror Podcast every single week. Monster Mash coming out monthly, or it should be. I think our next episode will be Friday the 13th, part 8, whichever one has Jason in New York for like 5 minutes. The one that's really bad. It's real bad.
That's a bad movie. Bad for Friday standards. I hate that fucking movie. You had the best summation of that film ever. You're like, the kills in this movie are lethargic. I'm like, oof.
They're in slow motion.
I'm still wondering how they got from a lake to New York on
because boats and water.
The lake suddenly had like a stream large enough to fit a boat that could go through it.
It suddenly had man-made tributaries. Like, what is? Okay.
I'm still bothered by the fact that they were like, "Oh, nobody in Washington is going to notice that we're pretending Washington is New York," which it's not. They don't look anything like they don't. I know. I'm from here.
What do you mean? There aren't redwoods in New York?
Right. There aren't trees bigger than certain buildings. God fucking damn it. Yeah, that and I mean, we talk about this a lot on the episode, but there are moments in that where I'm like, oh, you guys could have done something here. Like, there's a moment that's kind of like found footage during a time where there were like 5 movies that could even be considered found footage that even existed. So yeah, like,
awesome.
Yeah. So that's that, and we have a Valentine's episode that should also be happening pretty soon here. So
yeah. Once we figure out what exactly, or are you talking about for Lucaro?
Yeah, for MASH actually, but maybe for Lucaro, we'll see.
Okay.
Maybe we'll talk about dating and love life and things like that. No, that's not gonna happen. But
No, that's no.
Yeah.
No. All right, I'm Eric Fedorchak. You can find me on Instagram at Eric_Fedor. There's pictures of dogs and cats and food and comic books and other sorted sundries, I guess. Dried goods? No, I don't have any dried goods yet. I'm also floating around the Phantom Zone. Yeah, I'm there. If you want to talk, cool. If those of you who actually fucking listen would acknowledge that we're talking about you on the show.
Send us an email, Dirty Sci-Fi Buddha. We know that you like every single post.
And outside of that, special guest wanted to chime in. Arlen, listen. Your mother has a tanker truck full of creamed. Listen. Go now. Your mother has a tanker truck full of creamed corn, and we have to eat it by Wednesday. You need to help me with it. Get back here. Stop watching that movie for the second time. We've got a lot of corn with a lot of cream in it to eat.
Both fucking executives from podcast fucking fusion.
Anyways, oh god. Bye. Go see Glass. Don't listen to critics.